These are the books that I read every year to make myself better, more successful, more appreciative, have a happier life. All right, let's get on with this. All right, so this is part 2 of a 4-part series. Okay, so part 1 explained the basics, explained why I'm doing this series, and explained that you are reading wrong. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how you read. At least for me, the way I was reading was wrong. Now, the point of reading is to learn, but the way I was reading is that I was reading to be done. And I know psychologically there is this thing in our brains that we have to go to completion, right? So it's like you watch a movie, but you don't want to stop in the middle because you want to finish it and you want to feel like you completed something, even though it's a bad movie. So most of us don't get up and leave or turn it off in the middle. Same with books for me. It's like I wanted to finish the whole book. Even if it was not good or boring or I already knew what it was talking about, I would go through and read the whole book anyway, and then I'd go to the next one, then go to the next one. But I never really learned and I never really sunk in so that it wasn't effective in my life. I never really used it because I was just reading. And so the books that I'm going to share with you are totally different. I read them in a different way. And you can please go to part 1 of the series and it'll tell you exactly how and why and the reasoning behind it and how it works. But in this session, I want to talk about the first 4 books of the year that I read. Now, these are set in a specific order because it's the first of the year, right? First 4 months, and I really want to get on a good start. And so these particular books, the ones I'm going to show you, are the ones that I read every single year. Now, some of the books, depending on what I want to learn, what I want to accomplish that year, I might not read every single one of them over and again. They're interchangeable depending on the topics that you want to excel at. That's the cool thing about this program. So these 4 books, I would like, for me, they're like long-term, the issues that they address are long-term issues. And so sometimes these 4 take me longer than 1 month to implement. Some of them are not, and some of them do. So it's really, I try to interspeed them. So one book will be a very highly implementative book, and then the next month it might be just a thought-provoking book that I don't have to implement and do and work on that much. And then the next month again, it'll be another workbook. So all these books, they're bestsellers. You can probably still get them. I like to get them in hardcover because I know I'm going to be reading them and keeping them for a long time. Even if they go on print, I want the hardcover so I can keep doing this over and over again. So with that, let me get into book number 1. So this number 1 is called The One Thing. Okay, that's the name of the book, The One Thing. And again, you can see it's hardcover. This basically tells you and asks you a simple question. It's like, what's your one thing? And the idea is very simple. It's if we focus on too many things, we don't get enough things done. So the idea is to have really close, concise goals, and then you work on just one thing to accomplish those goals. And so there's one question that they ask in here that makes things much simpler, and they call it the focusing question. And the question is, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will become easier or unnecessary? What's the one thing I can do that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? And you might be thinking, well, my problems are really hard. My problems are intense, right? But there's always, if you break it down into small steps, those small steps are like dominoes. And the small one knocks over the bigger one, then you can knock over a bigger one, then you can knock over a bigger one until the goal that you want is accomplished. So there's an example of losing weight, right? I want to lose weight. Okay, what do I got to do? Well, I got to hit the gym. Well, what's the best time to go to the gym? First thing in the morning. Okay, well, I don't do that because I don't like getting up early, or I get lazy in the morning. So I don't go to the gym in the morning. I don't work out in the morning. So if I can just get myself up early in the morning, then I'll do that. Well, what's the best way to do that? I don't know. Set my alarm. Okay. Is that the one thing that I can do? No, the one thing I can do is work out, right? That's it? No. We got to go smaller. So if the goal is to lose weight, then one step removed from that is I need to work out, 5 days a week. Okay. Then one step removed from that, smaller than that, is I need to get to the gym, right? 5 times a week. And then one step smaller than that is, I need to wake up on time so I can get to the gym. And then one step below that, and then that, and then that. So what we realized is, and this was an example that, so it's not just getting to the gym, I'm going to put my snooze button on and I'm going to go back to sleep. So how do I get to the gym on time? Well, one idea was that you can sleep in your gym clothes, and then you just get up, alarm rings, you get up and you go to the gym. Okay, that's fine, but I still don't get up, right? I'm still groggy in the morning. Why? Well, in the example, it was because the person would drink alcohol at night to help him go to sleep or unwind, and they would sleep late. So obviously you got to cut out your alcohol, and then you have to go to bed on time. Okay, so is that my one thing? Go to bed on time? No, because because you don't know what on time is. So you have to set your schedule, and you have to be in bed before it's sleep time. So when do you go to sleep? Well, okay, if I want to go to sleep, if I want to be asleep at 10 so that I can get up early, then you should probably be in bed by like 9:30. Well, at 9:30, I'm still doing stuff. So I can't just like snap my fingers and go to bed. So I got to start getting ready. Okay, so I need like half an hour to get ready, right? Pull my stuff away, put the kids to bed, blah, 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 and then be in bed. So 9 o'clock is when I have to start getting ready. So is that my one thing? No. The one thing would be even smaller. It would be to set an alarm for 9 o'clock. So you set an alarm for 9 o'clock that, hey, it's time for me to start getting ready. I got half an hour to be in bed so that I can fall asleep in half an hour so that I could wake up early in the morning and not drink, obviously. And so I can get up early in the morning so that I can go to the gym, so that I could work out, so that I could lose weight. So that's how it breaks down. So that one thing you could do, the one small thing that you could do right now that makes everything easy is to set your alarm for 9 o'clock at night and make a goal. And the goal is to lose weight, but you break it down. So that's one example. The book has a lot more examples. The book is really good. They wouldn't have sold millions of copies otherwise. And I read it every year because it keeps bringing me back to, hey, what's the one thing? What's the one thing? We just did one thing right now. I had a problem that I've been working on for months, literally months. And I asked the question and the answer just came. It's like, oh, wow. If I did this one small change, it just makes everything so much simpler. And it makes all this extra work that I was thinking of doing completely unnecessary. Like I don't even have to do it anymore because of this one small change. And it was one thing that I didn't want to do. But when he asked the question, it's like the answer is like, it's pointing the answer. Like this is the thing you got to do. This is going to make everything easier or unnecessary. So in my case, it's definitely going to be easier. It's going to be faster, and it's going to make a lot of things unnecessary. So that's the one question. That's just one thing in that book. All right. So that's the one thing. That's a great book. I start off every January with that book. All right. February is this book, The Power of Full Engagement. Making energy, not time, is the key to high performance and personal renewal. Okay. So the power of full engagement. Now, this is something that is really, really good about energy, about health, about stamina, about exercise. And it's not just talking about health. It's not just talking about one type of exercise. It's about your mind as well, sleep, fitness, health, or nutrition, all that stuff. It combines all of it. That's why I put it in February so that it can retrain my brain and get me on the right path if I've fallen off, which I usually do because I'm not the most active person. All right. So it helps you figure out, and it reinforces all the different reasons why you need to eat better, why you need to sleep well, why you need to, exercise on a regular basis and all that. And so this one, if you're dealing with, overweight or high cholesterol or whatever problems, which almost everybody nowadays has some type of health problem, right? If you're dealing with that, you can use this one, or you can use some other one that's similar vein, and that really helps you to remember and get you back on track and back on focus for your health. Now, this is not particularly a health book. It's more about energy and how to have more energy to have a more productive and more happy life. That's the point of it. It's not health, and nutrition is part of it, but it's more than that. It's more about energy, how you think, how you act, how you work, all that sort of thing. So that's why I like this one. It's not just about, oh, this is your diet, it's not a cookbook or whatever. So that's one, I really like that one again. And that one I put in February. So this one is the February is a smaller month, and sometimes this one can be a little bit heavy. And so sometimes it overlaps in March. So it takes February and March because it's really, really important, right? The concepts are really important. And if your health is no good, then it doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter how much time you have, you can't do anything. You're pretty much screwed. So that's why your health and your energy are really, really important concepts. Next, we have one that I have spent a lot of time working on, and it's basically happiness. How do you be more happy? A lot of us are suffering anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, all kinds of crazy stuff. And mental health is getting worse and worse, even though, we have everything we need. We have everything we want. Basically, you snap your fingers and, your food comes, groceries come to your door. People take you anywhere you want. Anything you want is available. It's incredible. Amazon used to be like, oh my God, next 2-day delivery was amazing. Now it's 1-day delivery. Now it's like same day delivery. You press a button and the thing shows up before you get home. It's like, whoa, what? I just ordered this. How did it get here? So why are we so sad? What's the problem? I don't know. I guess it's different for everybody. So for me, I spent a lot of time, I went through some depression issues. We had people in our family that passed away unexpectedly. They were murdered. And so I did go through depression, take the pills and all that. And then I was like, no, I don't want to take pills. I want to do it myself. And so this book is The Happiness Project. It's a really cool book. And the reason it's good is because there are a lot of books on happiness. I mean, there's a lot of trainings, a lot of things on happiness. Most of the things, they all say the same thing, right? They all use the same studies. They all say the same things. So what this woman did was she took a year out of her life, and she probably, I'm going to write a book about it, but she looked at all the studies and all of the different techniques that they tell you to do, and she actually did them. And she recorded which ones made her happier, which ones worked, which ones didn't, which ones, were like a waste of time, which ones are amazing. And she records them in her own voice, which it's pretty funny, and so I like that one a lot because she has all the research, but then she also has how she applied it. And so it's a bit of a story, it's not all dry and scientific, even though she explains everything very nicely. So that one is The Happiness Project. That one is really good. I love that one. I read it again. These first four, I do read every single year because to me, they're that important. And the happiness book, even if you're not suffering from depression or whatnot, it does tell you it gives you ideas and it gives you a lot of tips and a lot of tricks. You don't have to use all of them. You can use some of them. You don't have to do it like she did where you have to try every single method. And I don't, I might take one, maybe two out of the book every year and be like, you know what, I'm going to try this. One of the simple idea would be like, and I've started doing this with my kids, so every night when I'm putting them to bed, I ask them, hey, tell me 3 things that went well today. Tell me 3 things that went good today. And so you end the day thinking about positives. Most of us think about, oh man, this happened wrong and that happened wrong. I got to do this tomorrow. I got to do that tomorrow. And I'm so tired, blah, blah, blah. I'm so exhausted. But we don't think about all the stuff that went right. So this was one technique that you just think about 3 things every day that went right. And it could be something really simple. For me, making this video is going to be one of those things for me. It's like, hey, I finished part 2 of the 4-part series. Yay. I'm going to celebrate that. I might have had a trade that went well today. Yay. I'm going to celebrate that because we don't celebrate enough. And this is the reason that we also have at OptionGenius, we have all the bells. We ring bells every time. Every time we have a positive trade, we ring a bell because we win on a lot of trades. And so it becomes common to just win. And it's like, oh, hey, made money today. Whoop-de-doo-da. No, you got to celebrate it. You got to make it exciting, right? Otherwise, it just gets boring. So we ring the bell every time we have a positive trade. And it's a bit of a celebration. Same thing with the 3 things that happened today. You're celebrating every single day because these days don't come back. There was another technique I talked about in a different episode where, you find out how many days supposedly or average you have left in life, based on how old you are now and when you're going to die, which is probably around 80 years old. So how many days you have left, you write that on the mirror with the dry erase marker. So when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you got to change the number every day. So it's like, like yesterday was 12,700. Today it's 12,699. You got to change the number every day and you give yourself that mental remembrance that, oh my God, I got 1 day left. Oh my, yeah, today's gone. Oh man, the day's gone. So at night, when I see that number, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm like, man, what did I do today? Was it worth it? And then you change your patterns. So it's not immediate, but it does gradually help and gradually remind yourself and gradually you spend more and more time doing the things that you enjoy so that you, at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, today was a good day. Today was a good day. Yeah, maybe I'll do more of that tomorrow. All right. Now, this book number 4 is, for me, it was a very deep book. It's called A Million Miles in 1,000 Years by Donald Miller. How I Learned to Live a Better Story. Not a better life, but a better story. A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. Now, I was lucky that I found this book. I don't know how I found it, but why I picked it up, but I did. And so for me, I've been told, and so have you, to find your purpose, to find your passion, to find the thing that really makes you alive, And then if you can find that one thing and do that for a living, then you never have to work a day in your life. That's great. And I've spent years trying to find my purpose. Like, what is it? Do I want to help people? Do I want to make a lot of money? Do I want to build a building? Do I want to build a big company? Do I want to travel the world? What is the purpose? What is the point of my life? And I realized that there's a lot of things I want to do, right? But there's no just one overarching purpose. Like, was I put on this earth to trade options? Was I put on this earth to teach people how to trade options? Not necessarily. I don't think so. I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't want to do that for the rest of my life, right? I'm sorry, but this show is it's gonna end one day. So I don't know. Like, I like, what is my purpose? What do I really want out of life? Like, I have everything I want. What is it that makes me keep going? And maybe that's one of the reasons I get depressed. It's like, I already have what I want. Where's the challenge? What's the next steps? But in this book, he talks about, it's basically a story of his life, and he's going through and he has this crisis. And what he realizes is that maybe we don't have to have a purpose in life. Maybe everybody doesn't have a purpose, or you do, maybe you don't know what it is. But instead of looking for a purpose, how about we look at it in a different way, right? We look at our lives in a different context, and we say that, my life is my story, and I get to tell and I get to write the story however I want. So what is the story that I want to write? Well, I want to be a teacher. I want to be rich. I want to be a father. I want to be a XYZ, a sailor. I want to be a famous kite fisherman. Kite fisherman? I don't know. Whatever. I want to be famous at doing this one thing. Those are all things that you can put as part of your story. And so there's one story in there. He was talking to a friend of his, and the guy had a daughter, teenage daughter, and he couldn't get through to her. And so the daughter was she got a boyfriend. The boyfriend was many years older than her, and they were doing drugs, and they were in a gang, and all this bad stuff was, and the guy listened to the author about this realization about, the story that we tell with our lives. And that guy realized that the story that the daughter was telling herself about herself was not a good story. So he said, you know what? I want her to live a good story so that she gets out of all this bad stuff and she feels good about herself. And so he went home and he said, hey, you know what? We are going to build a school in Mexico. And they didn't know anything about building schools. They didn't have any extra money. They didn't have nothing. He just went to his wife and his daughter and said, we're going to build a school in Mexico, because for some reason he came up with that. And that was the story he wanted to be able to tell. And so the daughter actually got really excited. At first, the wife got mad. She's like, well, you didn't tell me about this. We didn't talk about this. How do you just spend all this money building a school, blah, blah, blah. But the daughter got really excited, and she did research on it. She found, how much stuff is going to cost. She found where she could put the school, how they're going to approach it. And that family actually ended up building a school in Mexico. And that was the story that the daughter was able to tell about herself. And that increased her self-confidence and increased her self-worth, self-esteem. And that was just one story that she was able to tell about herself. Then then you go on further and you say, okay, if I'm a person who builds schools, right, what else can I accomplish? I'm not going to go be in a gang, right? I'm not going to do drugs. I'm a school builder, right? So your perspective changes on you. And so you don't have to have a purpose. You just have to be able to tell a good story about yourself, and you get to write your own story. So it could be that I am a successful trader. That's part of my story, but that's not the only story I have in my life, right? I'm also a good father. That's another story. How do I tell that story? And then it's up to me to come up with the reason and the way to be able to know that I'm living a good story. And then you have different stories and you pile them on top of each other. So that was a really good book. It reminds me of that every year. And so nowadays, whenever I hear, there's articles and videos and podcasts and everything about, how do you find your purpose? How do you find your purpose? I just, never mind. I spent so much time trying to figure out my purpose, listening to this, taking courses on how do you find your purpose. And I'm like, man, I still can't find my purpose. I don't know what to do. It's like, what's the one thing? It's like, there's not just one thing. There are many things, and it's okay if there are many things. So if you haven't found your purpose yet, no worries. There's another way to look at it. It's like, hey, just tell a story about your life. What story do you want to tell? So it's like, if it's your funeral, what do you want them to be talking about? That's your story. That's how they're going to be telling the story from their perspective, but you get to write your story now so that when you die and they talk about you, they'll be telling your story the way you want it to be told, right? So these are the first 4 books. All right. So this is part 2. Part 3, I'm going to go in 4 more books. And then part 4, I'm going to do 4 more books. So we finish out the whole year. These are the books that I read every year to make myself better, more successful, more appreciative, have a happier life. So these 4 books are really good. The next 4 ones are going to be amazing. They're going to knock your socks off. And then the 4 after that are maybe even the best one. So that said, I'll see you in part number 3.